Do you want to take your stock Logic drums from this to this? Well, in this video series, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do it. Welcome back to the band guide. I'm your band guy, Colin, and this video is the first video in a 4-part series of how to make Logic drums sound more real. In part 1, which is today, we're going to be setting up your drums and adding distortion, of all things. You'll see why that helps so much in just a minute. In the second video, we're going to be doing some drum bus processing. In the third video, we're going to be doing parallel compression, and in the fourth video, we're going to create a very realistic space around the drum kit in 4 ways that you probably haven't used before. Now, the truth about this process is it's a lot of little steps that add up to make your drum sound way more realistic, but it is a lot of little steps. So I've put together something to help you with that. I've put together a Make Logic Drums Sound Real checklist that just walks through all the little steps that we're going to be doing, so you can quickly reference back to it and just check them off every time you're working on a drum mix for any of your songs in the future. So you don't have to keep coming back to the series to see what did he do again? Just a quick checklist. It's completely free from the link in the description below, so be sure to pick it up. But let's go and get into step 1, which is our setup and distortion. All right, so the first thing we want to do is switch from just the stock Logic drum kit to a producer kit. To do that, we hit Y on the keyboard, and then in the bottom left corner, we go down to where it says producer kits. Click on that, and you'll see a bunch of options here. Most of them are the same as the drum kits you've already seen before, but there's a few other kind of crazy ones like 8-bit. This is a really cool one. I've actually used that in a song before. It's a really wild sound. But in general, it's the same kits. They just have this producer kit functionality that we'll look at in a second. I'm going to just go with the SoCal kit just for simplicity here. That's what our stock kit was here. And it will look the same initially, but you'll see here this little arrow. If I click on that, this is when it starts to get crazy, because now instead of just having one drummer track, we have all of these tracks that we can mix individually. So we get access to the overheads, access to the kick in, access to just the snare top sound, right? And we can mix all these individual levels and process them individually and really tailor our sound. But even more than that, we can also, if we hit X on the keyboard to bring up this view here, if you go to where it says overheads and click on that track, at the top of this, you'll see this drum kit plugin. If I click on that plugin, now we get access to all the individual sounds of the drum kit. So if I kick on this kick drum, I can select any of these kick drums for this drum kit. So now you can really tailor the individual sounds of the drum kit to fit perfectly in your song. Getting your sample selection right is such a huge part of getting a great drum sound, especially when you're using virtual drum kits like we are here. So let's just take a couple minutes and find what we've just most resonate with it. Listen to it in the context of the full drum kit, and ideally if you've recorded like a couple layers of your song, listen to it in the song. Here we're just going to listen to it with this full drum part playing. So right now we're changing out this kick drum. Let's listen to this birch punch. It's kind of a cool sound. I like that too. Cool. Ooh. It's got some nice sub to it. I really like that a lot. Okay. I know I'm going to go with the Stadium Deep for now, at least. I've already done this a few times, so I kind of know what I like. So for now, we're going to go with the Stadium Deep. Let's listen to the toms here. Let's just loop where the toms play. Kind of like that. Those sound very real to me. All of these could work in the right song, but these 60s ones just sounded good to me. They sound very real. I also like this modern maple. But you could use any of them. They're all good. They're just different, right? Okay, so let's loop the full section again. And let's play around with the cymbals. So I already like the cymbals. I don't dislike the cymbals, but let's listen to some of these other ones. Not for me. Let's just play a little bit. It's a cool sound. I like this vintage dark. Okay, let's go with that. Let's just check it against. It was modern dark to start. That's a fine sound, but I think I like this vintage dark. Yeah, let's go with that. Vintage dark. Let's change out the snare, or at least listen to the snare. A black brass is a great sounding snare, but let's just see if we like one of the other ones better. Bell brass. I like that. Not for this song. So where it says brushes here, that has to do with the type of stick that they're using. You don't necessarily want to blend some tracks brushes, others not. Maybe you do, but generally speaking, I'm usually going to do a full brush kit where the toms and cymbals and everything are brushes. In this case, it's not right for this song and this part. There's something about changing out the snare samples that makes it kind of like stutter. I think it's also making my video stutter, so sorry about that. All right, let's listen to this heavy brass. I know I like this muted brass. Let's listen to that. That's a good sound. But muted chrome. I think I like this brass best against the black brass. Okay, muted brass it is. And finally, let's listen to the hi-hats. See if we want to change those out. I actually just like the modern dark that it was off the bat. Okay, so we've now changed out our drum samples. We've selected the producer kit, selected the right samples. The next thing I want to do is flip to drummer perspective. So one of the weirdest things to me about the Logic Drummer is that it's from audience perspective, which is not the way just about any record you know and love is. Almost all records are mixed from drummer's perspective, meaning that the hi-hats are on the left and it moves around the kit. That's probably the opposite for you because of the camera, but hi-hats on the left and it moves around from the drummer's perspective. I'm a drummer, so resonates with me. This is actually very easy to fix. We just have to flip the whole drum kit 180 degrees. So to do this, your initial thought might be, well, I'm just going to take this hi-hat and pan it over to the left, right? The problem with that is that the overheads here have it in the right ear, and there's no way to just pan those the opposite direction easily. We could individually flip that, but we also have the room track that also has the hi-hats over in the right ear. So instead of individually addressing it, we're just going to do it globally on this track, which is where all the drum tracks run together in one place. It's called the drum bus. So I'm just going to add a plugin to the very top of this channel here. Go down to Imaging, Direction Mixer, and we're just going to set this direction 180 degrees. It's just like turning around 180 degrees. And so now it will sound like this. Hi-hat on the left, right? It might be a little confusing because, again, we see it on the right here, but we've just flipped the whole drum kit. So as long as you know that, remember that, that's easy. Okay, so I think that automatically makes it feel more like a record because that's the way most records that I know and love are mixed. The final thing we're going to do in this video is add a grit or distortion track to these drums. These drums sound great, but they're a little too perfect. If we add a little distortion in, it's kind of like adding in the harmonic content you get from running through analog gear out in the real world. It adds this little bit of distortion that's actually very pleasing and makes them sound less perfect and a little bit more real. So to do that, we're going to use something called a bus. And a bus is just where you send from one track over to another track, and then you can process differently on that track. So I'm just going to send the entire drum sound from our drum bus here over to a fresh bus that I can add distortion on. So under sends, I'm just going to go to bus, and you can select any of these. I'm just going to do bus 3 here. If you hold Option on the keyboard and click on this, it's just going to put it up to unison gain, meaning the full volume. And then I'm going to switch this to pre-fader. That means that if I adjust this volume here, it won't affect how much volume is being sent to that distortion bus. If you have this in the default, which is post-pan, then that's going to be after this volume and this pan position. By switching to pre-fader, it's going to be before both of those. So if I tweak either of those here, it won't affect my distortion bus that just appeared over here on aux 17. So now we're just going to title this Grit, and if I listen to this in solo, it just sounds like the drum kit, because right now it's just sending this full drum sound over to this channel. But what I can do is now process this a little bit differently. So we're just going to add a distortion plugin, and my go-to for drum distortion is often just the distortion plugin in Logic. Let's go and select this here. we're going to turn on level compensation, which means that it's going to balance as we're adding more volume to get more distortion. It's going to balance it back out. I'm also just automatically going to turn this down because I know from experience that this adds a lot of volume. Bring the tone up here to get a little bit more high end. Let's listen to this in solo here. Set it around there. Let's drive it pretty intensely. A little bit too much. Okay, that's sounding pretty good to me. Let's actually set an EQ before this distortion, and we're just going to cut out the low end. If you distort your low end, it does this weird thing where it can actually make it feel thinner in the mix as opposed to fuller. So cutting out the low end on tracks that don't need it actually helps. So I'm just going to cut that out before the distortion here with this EQ. And it automatically feels cleaner, right? Okay, I'm liking that a lot. Okay, so now because this is on a separate track, I can unsolo it and we can just blend it up in with the full drum sound. So all the way down here, we're hearing just the drum sound. And let's just start to mix up this grit track. If I take this away, add it back in. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much life this immediately gives our drum track. Listen to that one more time. So this is without, and then I'm going to add it in, and notice how it just kind of feels like the drums come alive a little bit. It really helps. And if we compare that to our original stock Logic drum kit, check this out. Sounds fine, nothing wrong with that. Compared to more real sounding already, right? Okay, so before you go, be sure to grab the Make Logic Drum Sound Real guide from the link in the description below. It's really going to help you out. It just walks through everything we did here in this video and everything coming up in the future videos, so you can quickly reference back to it and just check them off as you go. It's just a quick checklist. It's really going to help you get through this process because there's a lot of little steps that add up to a much more realistic sounding drum kit. Okay, as always, I'd love to hear from you. Have you added distortion to your drums before? It feels kind of wrong, but it's so right. Let me know in the comments below if that's something you've tried before, and if not, if you're going to try it next time you're mixing drums. If this video was helpful, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week. We're going to start drum bus processing to keep making these drums sound a little bit more real. See you then.